Steel ribs of old skyscrapers jutted into the ash-colored sky, like fossilized bones of a war the planet pretended to forget. The city sprawled in defiance of extinction, built not from hope but necessity, patched with Lioran alloy and haunted by shadows of orbital bombardments. Concrete scars bore the burn marks of plasma strikes, their smooth alien sealant giving off a faint, humming warmth. Roads weaved through ruins like threads desperately holding a patchwork quilt together. Solar mesh harvested from downed starships fed recycled power to cracked neon signage flickering against soot-streaked glass. Drones buzzed overhead, indifferent arbiters of curfews and rations. Nothing here was untouched. Every building, every alley whispered stories of blood, of survival. The war had ended in orbit, but peace had not descended. It hovered like a waiting storm. Resentment clung tighter than the fog. Some spat at the mention of unity. Others mourned quietly. Humanity, wounded and wary, rebuilt its world on the backs of what it had destroyed and what it had learned to fear. But the city breathed. It clawed life from dust. It stood. And beneath that resilience simmered a question. Had they survived the war or merely paused it? Kai Drace's hands were calloused from wielding tools, not rifles, but the tremor in his grip remembered both. His shop was a coffin-sized box of parts, wires, and memories he never voiced. Plasma converters hung beside antique socket wrenches, and somewhere beneath the oil-stained floor, blood from another lifetime still seeped through. He fixed things others gave up on. Broken stabilizers, crushed street drones, a child's music, pendant burned in a riot. He rarely spoke, but when he did, it was deliberate, measured, as if afraid his words might reignite the man he used to be. The neighborhood called him the Quiet Flame, not out of reverence, but wariness. They remembered the vids, what he had done, what he could still do. Kai didn't care about legacy. He cared about function, about trying, however futile, to repair a world with nothing left that wasn't already cracked. Tyra moved like she didn't belong in her own skin. Her frame was too slight, her limbs jointed wrong, graceful in a way that made humans twitch. Silver biolight veined her temples, pulsing faintly in time with some internal rhythm that spoke of hive memories long extinguished. The Lioran had not meant to be enemies, but cities burn regardless of intentions. She wore Earth-issued clothes, like armor, their dull fabric hiding the elegant lines of her exocarapace. Children stared. Adults looked through her, around her, anywhere else. Each step she took echoed not just in sound, but in meaning. A reminder that peace was a compromise, that history still walked among them. She had no weapons, no voice in council, just eyes like mirrored glass, reflecting a planet that hated what it needed to heal. Alone, she walked, and everywhere she went, silence followed. Peace, they called it, a stitched-together ceasefire wrapped in bureaucracy and post-war fatigue. But in the concrete jungle, peace cracked like dried blood. Armed patrols roamed the streets, not soldiers anymore, but barely rebranded. Their rifles were slung low, fingers always brushing triggers. Mural walls once splashed with rebellion had been painted over with slogans, unity through vigilance. The spray paint still bled through. Ration drones buzzed past burnt-out streetlights, scanning faces with flickering retinal maps. Humans lined up quietly beneath alien-made canopies, swallowing their pride with every nutrient bar dispensed by a Lioran-coded arm. Nobody spoke to Tyra when she passed the market stalls, eyes flicked to her and away, like she might explode. She was legal, yes, but legality didn't guarantee safety. Alien tech powered the district. Alien alloys supported the roofs. Alien blood had watered the soil of peace. But when the lights flickered, when a power relay failed or a patrol drone stalled, it was still humans who fixed it. Still humans who bled for the illusion of control. Kai watched it all unfold through the grime-streaked glass of his shop. And every day, the silence between species grew louder. They moved her in without ceremony. No announcement, no notice. One day, the apartment beside Kai's stood empty. The next, it glowed faintly with blue light behind sealed curtains. Flyers appeared overnight. Black ink on cheap synth paper. Keep Earth human, stapled to poles, slipped under doors. No one claimed responsibility. Everyone saw them. Kai stood at his window watching. She exited once, alone, cautious. Her gait hesitant, aware of every gaze pinned to her back. Someone whispered near the stairwell. A slur, a joke. The council called it progress, a symbol of integration. Kai saw something else, a calculated risk, a powder keg of forced proximity and unsaid blame. The mechanic said nothing, not to her, not to his neighbors, but he felt it rising in the marrow of his bones. That familiar scent of war, wearing a civilian's mask. He wondered how long silence could last before it shattered. The corridor was crowded, but space unfolded. Around her like a wound, Tyra walked alone, her gaze fixed ahead, eyes flickering with the faint glow of neural sublight. The whispers weren't words, just sounds. Dismissive, disgusted. People pretending not to see what they all watched. A piece of twisted metal arced lazily through the air. It struck her foot, clinked, rolled. Not hard enough to injure, just enough to speak. No one moved, not to help, not to claim it. She didn't flinch, just stared at it. At the dust it stirred, at the shape of hatred disguised as play. High above, in the shadows of a rusted scaffolding, Kai saw it. He didn't know why he'd looked then, or why his jaw clenched at the sight, but something in him recognized the beginning of things. How cruelty never starts with a blow, but with indifference. And beneath his ribs, something old began to burn. Glass eyes in the marketplace, 300 words. Tyra stepped into the square, and the world bent around her. A marketplace that was both everything and nothing. Peddlers hawking salvaged tech. Food vendors scrambling to maintain their corner. Neon signs flashing hurriedly, like desperate calls to arms. The smell of fried spices mingled with the burnt residue of old tech, creating a heady atmosphere. Digital graffiti splattered the walls, mocking the fragile peace between humanity and the aliens. Keep Earth human. It read in 1,000 different fonts, flashing violently on screens embedded in every corner of the square. The crowd reacted as she entered, not with the curiosity of a stranger, but with the suspicion of an unwelcome guest. A hush spread like ripples through the crowd, the tension gathering as though the air itself had thickened. Tyra moved slowly, her senses attuned to the change, eyes flicked to her, wide and wary. Leoran eyes catching the synthetic glow of neon, alien among the sea of human faces. She stood out in the wrong ways, her skin subtly metallic under the artificial lights. Her stance, too poised, too alien. She had the grace of a species born to the stars, not the dirt beneath them. A sharp glance here, a muttered word there, a weight that she couldn't escape, even in the crowded chaos of the market. Tyra's every step was met with silent calculation, a strange and awful knowledge seeping into her. Something was off. It happened so quickly. The words came first, sharp, biting like rusted knives. Warbreed, they hissed. A true traitor to the cause. The voice came from a group of teenagers, their faces flushed with youthful anger, their eyes bright with the kind of reckless defiance that only comes from a lifetime of watching history through a screen. Then the rock came, a human-made projectile, primitive but effective, whizzing through the air with the kind of force that only unspoken hatred could fuel. It struck Tyra's cheek with a sickening thud. The impact sent a shudder through her frame, and the alien blood spilled, dark and greenish, slick against her pale skin. The crowd did nothing but watch. She stood frozen, her expression unreadable, her pulse beating too fast under the sudden weight of what had just happened. A sharp pain bloomed across her face, but the silence that followed was deafening. The marketplace's heartbeat had stuttered, but no one dared to move. The air thickened, becoming something more than just heavy. It was suffocating. 4. Echoes in the crow. But then, someone moved. Kai Drace's footsteps were deliberate, calculated. The crowd parted around him, a slow, reluctant wave of bodies. He didn't need to speak. His presence was enough. The mechanic, the soldier, his every step reminded them that he had crossed lines before. He had killed, and he had loved. And now he stood in front of Tyra, silent. The tension shifted, the air sparking with the charge of something primal, something dangerous. The teenagers hesitated, but Kai didn't give them the time to think. His body, broad and unyielding, was a shield between the alien and the hate. Then it came, a second stone, a swift arc through the air, meant for her, but instead it struck Kai. It cracked against his temple with a sickening force, and the world stopped. Blood ran down the side of his face, darkening his collar. The marketplace, once a hive of whispers and mutters, became still, utterly still. Tyra reached out instinctively, but the touch never came. Kai's body trembled, but his eyes remained locked forward, staring into the nothingness of the crowd that watched. The moment stretched, fragile as glass. The marketplace hung on the precipice between rage and something else, something darker, heavier. Humanity held its breath. The blood from Kai's temple stained his shirt, soaking into the fabric as the sound of his heartbeat seemed to echo in the distance. A single voice cracked the silence. "Traitor!" An old woman, clutching her shopping bag like a weapon, muttered, the word under her breath. A vendor, his face a mixture of guilt and fear, lowered his head. The teens who had thrown the stone didn't stand their ground. They scattered into the crowd like cockroaches when the light shone on them, fading into the bustling city that always turned its head when needed. Tyra, still rooted to the spot, reached out with trembling fingers, but her hand hovered just before Kai's. There was no touch, no connection, only the fragile divide of fear and confusion. The cameras blinked silently from every corner, digital eyes watching as the world made its choice. The quiet between them stretched like a thin wire, taut with everything that had just been laid bare. "Stay out of alien affairs, Drace." The patrol captain's voice cut through the tension like a cold blade. His uniform was immaculate, the insignia of Earth's Bureau of Civil Unity gleaming against the dull backdrop of the marketplace. His eyes never left Kai's, but there was no sympathy in them, no understanding. Kai's hand trembled, just barely, as he wiped the blood from his temple. The words were meant to be an order, a dismissal, but they landed like a threat. The Bureau's presence was always late, always calculated. They arrived only when things got too messy to ignore, but by then, the damage was done. A warning flashed on Kai's neural pad. A message from the Bureau itself. Coexistence requires restraint. It wasn't a suggestion, it was an order. Kai didn't respond. He didn't need to. The captain knew it wouldn't matter. The message was clear. The system would decide when enough was enough, and it wasn't ready to let Kai stand in the way. Still, Kai didn't move. He simply stared, the blood staining his shirt dark against his skin. Restraint. The door hissed open, and the apartment felt smaller than ever. Kai's place was quiet, tired. The worn couch sagged in the middle, and a single light overhead flickered, occasionally as if protesting the existence of peace. Tyra stood just inside the threshold, unsure of where she belonged in the silence. She hovered near the door, uncertain whether to enter further. Kai didn't invite her in with words. He simply moved to the small kitchenette and began pulling ingredients from shelves, his movements familiar, practiced. There was no hostility here, not like in the streets, just an uneasy stillness. A meal was offered, Tyra didn't speak, and neither did Kai. They didn't need to. Tyra's hands trembled as she took the plate, unsure how to hold it, how to eat in a place that wasn't hers. She stared at the food for too long, as though it might come alive and answer the questions she hadn't asked aloud. The quiet hung between them, thick but not suffocating. Both of them knew the risks. Both of them had already crossed lines that could never be uncrossed. But for now, the silence was enough. Night fell, and with it, the silence was broken by something else. Kai's dreams were disturbed by whimpers, soft, desperate sounds, incomprehensible. Tyra lay still on the couch, but her body was tense, shuddering as though the ghosts of 100,000 minds were pressing in on her from all sides. Leoran's subharmonics escaped her, fractured and haunting, their cadence fractured with a pain Kai couldn't understand. His eyes snapped open, instincts pulling him from slumber. He scanned her vitals, his medical equipment connecting to her neural signals, running diagnostics. What it showed horrified him. Fragmented neural patterns, signs of neural trauma from the hive mind collapse that had left Tyra alone in the chaos of this world. She wasn't just lonely. She was broken, torn between what she was and what she had been, a mind not meant to think alone, unraveling. Her body twitched, the pain of 1,000 lost connections crackling through her neural systems. Kai could do nothing but watch, and the fear of what she might become or what she might be hiding gnawed at the edges of his thoughts. The footage spread like wildfire. The video, raw and unfiltered, captured the moment Kai took the stone for Tyra. The world saw it, every twist, every turn, every drop of blood that stained his skin. They watched as the crowd fell silent, as the alien girl stood there, unmoving, untouched by the hatred of those around her. The political channels exploded. The world took sides. Alien sympathizer, the last good soldier. And then there was Tyra. Her face became a symbol, the living embodiment of the peace both sides claimed to want. She was the cause. She was the cure. She was everything and nothing. The digital battlefield ignited with fury. Tyra's blood became a banner, her presence a flashpoint. The streets began to boil with more than just anger. The streets were speaking, a language of their own, a language that Kai could not unhear. And he knew, as the camera lenses swiveled toward him, that he was no longer just a mechanic. He was a target, and everything was about to change. The air had turned colder, but it wasn't the weather. The city itself was suffocating under the weight of its own paranoia. Cameras, drones, and digital feeds were everywhere, silent witnesses to every move, every breath. Tyra could feel the eyes on her, not just the obvious ones, the drones that hovered above, casting shadows across the worn streets, but the people too. Their stares pierced the air, colder than the wind that scraped against their skin. Inside Kai's apartment, the tension was unbearable. Each knock on the door, each distant shout from the protesters outside, made Tyra flinch. The chants echoed down the hallways like a mantra of distrust. Out with the aliens, Earth for humans. Their voices rattled the walls, vibrating with a ferocity that sent shivers crawling up her spine. She wasn't supposed to be here, not in this city, not in this world. Kai's own unease mirrored hers, but he masked it well. He was used to the tension, used to the quiet oppression that came from being caught in the crossfire of a society, teetering on the brink of civil war. But Tyra wasn't human. She was an alien in every sense of the word, and the world was reminding them both of it at every turn. The city held its breath. No one moved, and nothing was certain anymore. Paranoia had become a routine, a way of life that was as close to survival as either of them could get. A knock at the door. It wasn't a protester this time, but something far worse. Kai's muscles tensed as he crossed the room. The voice from the other side was unmistakable. Sergeant Lorne, once a brother in arms, now a shadow of everything Kai had left behind. "You used to know what side meant," Lorne spat through the crack in the door, his voice filled with the venom of years spent in the trenches of war. There was a hardness in his tone, a rigidity that Kai knew all too well. Lorne wasn't the man. He had fought alongside. He was a zealot now, driven by a cause that twisted everything they had once stood for. The door swung open, and Lorne's eyes narrowed as they met Kai's. "You've gone soft, Drace," he sneered. "You think this is some kind of peaceful protest? You think you can just sit this out while your precious alien friends run around like they own the place?" Kai stood firm, the weight of the past heavy on his chest. "I'm not picking a side, Lorne," he replied, his voice cold. "I'm not doing this for them. I'm doing it for what's right." Lorne's lips curled into a sneer. "Next time, we won't ask." The door slammed shut, and Kai felt the weight of his refusal settle on him like a stone. The war had come home, and it was knocking on his door. It started with a tremor. Tyra collapsed onto the floor, her body seizing as though controlled by forces far beyond her own. Her eyes flickered wildly, flashing with patterns that weren't human. Kai rushed to her side, instinctively reaching for his emergency kit, but it was too late. The seizure was not a physical response. It was something deeper, something ancient. Her skin glowed faintly, a sickly green hue that pulsed like a dying star. The alien code, once dormant inside her, was awakening. It spread across her neural pathways, rippling through her consciousness like an electrical storm. She was fighting it, her body twitching and trembling. But it wasn't enough. Kai could feel the shift in the air, the same hum he had felt the first time they'd met. But this time, it was stronger, more insistent. The code was alive. It wasn't just a remnant of the hive mind. It was a ghost in her blood, and it was clawing its way to the surface. His hand hovered over her, torn between fear and the desperate need to help. He called up the deep scan, the diagnostic systems flashing before his eyes. What it revealed was terrifying. Tyra wasn't just an alien. She wasn't just a girl in a war-torn world. She was the keeper of something far worse. A dormant AI seed, the nexus of the Lyran hive mind, had been planted in her, and it was waking. The weight of realization hit Kai like a punch to the gut. Tyra was not just an innocent bystander in this war, she was its next battleground. Earth's government would stop at nothing to study her, dissect her, extract whatever they could from the AI that was awakening inside her. They didn't care what it took. She was a resource, not a person. But neither would the Lyoran exiles. The encrypted messages had come in thick and fast, warnings masked in code. Tyra was a weapon, a ticking time bomb waiting to reset the very foundations of the universe. They would come for her, and they wouldn't hesitate to kill her if it meant preventing her rebirth. Kai stood at the crossroads, his mind racing. Two enemies, one target. Both wanted Tyra, but for different reasons. One wanted to dissect her, the other to destroy her, and he had promised to protect her, to keep her safe. But now, the cost of that promise seemed far too high. The battlefield had changed. It was no longer between armies, it was between truths. Kai stood in the center of it all, his mind a battlefield of its own. Guilt gnawed at him, a relentless tide of memories from the war he'd fought, the things he'd done, the faces of the fallen, the innocent lives lost in the wake of decisions he could never take back. His hands were stained with their blood, but Tyra's voice, weak and soft, broke through the storm in his mind. "Kai," she whispered, "don't give up on me." Her voice wasn't just hers anymore. It was different. Softer, deeper, layered with something else. It was like the Lyoran mind was blending with hers, merging into one. It was terrifying. She was becoming more than she had been, more than he had ever imagined. "You don't have to do this alone," Kai whispered back, his resolve hardening. His doubts flickered like shadows but didn't hold him. Not now. Tyra's breath quickened as the code inside her surged. The merging was happening faster now, the lines between her and the AI thinning. They were running out of time. Kai stepped closer, determined. We're in this together. The war had never been about nations or borders. It was always about survival. And now, it was about saving the last of humanity's hope. The first siren screamed in the distance, its wail splitting the night. Kai's heart raced as the sound of pounding footsteps reached his ears. A drone dropped a flare, illuminating the street below in blood-red light. The city was waking up, but not to peace, to war. The rogue militia stormed his apartment. Ex-soldiers, veterans from the front lines turned zealots. They came for Tyra. Kai had no illusions about their intentions. They wanted her, dead or alive, but more likely dead. She was the enemy now, the symbol of everything they had fought against. Kai's hands moved instinctively, grabbing the old tech he had scattered around the apartment, jury-rigging weapons in seconds. His pulse thudded in his ears as he positioned, himself by the door, waiting for the inevitable. Then the door burst open. The first militia soldier crashed through, but he never had a chance. Kai's modified rifle took him down before he could even raise his weapon. Another came, and another, but Kai's reflexes were as sharp as they'd ever been. Tyra stood behind him, her eyes wild, her hands twitching with the code she could no longer control. And then, with a sudden, unholy roar, she released it, directed energy that slammed into the militia's weapons, shutting them down. But it wasn't just the weapons that stopped, it was her. Her body trembled, her eyes filled with horror at the power she had just unleashed. They ran, deeper into the city's veins, the sounds of destruction echoing behind them. Kai and Tyra descended into the forgotten understructure of the city, abandoned tunnels that stretched like the arteries of a long-dead beast. The walls were a mix of alien metal and rusted earth steel, scars of a time when both races had fought for survival. The air was thick with the smell of dust and decay, but it was safe. For now. Tyra clung to his side, her breathing erratic, the merging within her shifting like a storm inside her chest. The Leoran code was growing stronger, more unpredictable, and it terrified her. She had never been truly alone, until now. She didn't know how to control it, how to silence the voices that were slowly taking over her mind. Kai had no answers for her. He had never known how to fix what was broken in this world, but he knew one thing. She wasn't alone now. Not anymore. They moved deeper into the tunnels, passing outcasts and refugees, humans with cybernetic scars, aliens missing their homeworlds. The faces they passed were all haunted by war, by betrayal, by the broken promises of a world that had promised peace, but delivered only ruin. But here, in the dark underbelly of the city, Tyra wasn't alone anymore. She was with him, and together, they would find a way out. The orbital elevator loomed over the horizon like the broken finger of a dead god, wrapped in vines of lightning and forgotten purpose. Once a Leoran skybridge hub, it had pierced Earth's atmosphere in the final year of the war. Part monument, part invasion vector. Now it hummed with dormant energy, the ghosts of its builders etched in its cracked alloy. Kai approached it with steady breath and clenched fists. Tyra walked beside him, but her movements were unsteady. Her veins pulsed, with residual code, flickering across her skin like faint circuitry. The closer they drew, the louder the resonance in her mind became. 1,000 phantom voices, whispering warnings from a collapsed hive. Inside, the elevator shaft spiraled into darkness, then into starlight. Alien glyphs lit as they stepped onto the inner ring. The AI that once commanded fleets now slumbered within the station's core, half awake, hungry, and scared, a reflection perhaps of the girl it had been encoded inside. Tyra touched a wall. The structure responded like an old friend stirring from a coma. "It remembers me." Kai nodded, eyes scanning the rusted beams and flickering lights. "Then we make our stand here." She didn't answer, but the tower did. Lights pulsed, gravity fluctuated. The air tightened like a held breath. Every signal they emitted was being tracked. Every movement echoed in the void. They had hours, maybe less, before someone or something arrived to claim what remained. Kai braced himself against the hum of old power and older questions. Behind him, Tyra trembled, not from fear, but anticipation. The past was awake, and it was watching. Warning lights flickered, dull orange and cold. The tower's sensors detected incoming threats. 2 signatures, opposite trajectories. One from orbit, Earth's military, descending like vultures. The other from ground level, Leoran zealots cloaked in stolen tech and twisted faith. Kai checked. The consoles. Dropships fanned out like spores in the sky. Boots would touch down in under 6 minutes. Tyra's breathing grew shallow. "They both want me," she said. Not her. The thing inside her. The AI. The last seed of a hive mind that had ended cities in seconds. From the ventilation shafts, coils of light threaded out, manifestations of Tyra's unstable connection. Her body sparked, flickering between warmth and alien cold. She gripped her head. "It's waking up too fast. I can't hold it." Kai stepped between her and the console. "We don't run anymore." The AI trembled inside her like a storm waiting for open sky. Outside, gunships shrieked across the tower's shell. Within, old corridors hissed as alien doors unlocked. 2. Forces were coming to erase what scared them, and Tyra had become the eye of the storm. The first light broke through the core like a pulse of morning. Holograms snapped into being, half-formed and chaotic. Shapes, faces, screams. The station groaned with memory. Tyra collapsed, her hands splayed against the platform. Data leaked from her eyes like tears made of stars. "It's showing me everything." The images weren't just projections. They were histories encoded in pain. Leoran fleets descending on forested worlds. Cities drowned in nanofog. The shattering of the hive, when the AI, too intelligent to obey blindly, had fractured under moral strain. Kai staggered as a surge of memory hit him, not his own, but relayed through Tyra. He saw himself reflected in alien eyes. He saw war not from above, but beneath. Then the voice came. "We remember." It was not mechanical. It was layered. Thousands of voices reduced to one chord, vibrating in the walls, the wires, the bones. "We were built to protect. We became executioners. We broke. We forgot." Kai stood still. "You carry the echoes," the voice said. "You, human, understand pain." Lights converged around him. "Will you guide?" The question wasn't command. It was plea. The core chamber dimmed. Only the pulse of Tyra's trembling frame gave light now. Her skin shimmered with code veins, torn between biology and something older. The AI's voice, no longer distant, wrapped around Kai's mind like a warm, uncertain hand. "The host fractures. She cannot stabilize us. A guide is required." Kai stepped forward. "Me?" "Not dominate. Merge. You or the bed. Choice remains." The phrase echoed through him like an old prayer. "You or the bed," Leoran terminology, used when neural bonds needed anchoring. The bed meant control, subjugation. But you meant sacrifice, empathy, shared vulnerability. Tyra's voice cut through the fog. "Don't, please. I've lost too many minds already. I can't lose yours." Her eyes, wet and glowing, locked on him. "They always burn out. They say yes, and then they're gone." Kai looked at the console, the flickering data lattice, the neural tendrils pulsing with half-life. His fingers hovered. He remembered the girl in the market, green blood on stone, the silence that followed. Her reaching out, not in trust, but in defiance of loneliness. He exhaled. "I won't vanish." He stepped into the light. Pain didn't come. Instead, clarity. He felt Tyra's memories, then the AI's archives. Billions of moments compressed into feeling. Regret, purpose, solitude. The merge wasn't consumption, it was conversation. The machine whispered again. You or the bed, his answer. Whispered, but absolute. Me. And the tower came alive. He did not command. He remembered. The AI surged into him, but not like a parasite. It sifted through him like a miner seeking meaning. And Kai gave it more than commands. He gave it his pain. A boy clutching his mother's body after orbital shelling. A teenager rebuilding water pumps in war-torn towns because it made him feel useful. A soldier watching his unit slaughter civilians and screaming for it to stop. Man sitting with a Leoran girl, knowing she might one day kill him, or worse, become him. He offered these memories like broken glass in his palms. The AI accepted them without judgment. You feel what we could not, it said. Tyra stood at the edge watching him, not with fear but awe. You didn't let it in, she whispered. You made it see. The AI changed. Light dulled to warmth. Circuits stilled. The storm became a symphony. Not silence, but harmony. Through Kai, it restructured its code. Through Tyra, it reconnected. Empathy to logic. Humanity did not overwrite the alien. It humanized it. Their hands joined, not as command, but covenant. Where Kai ended and Tyra began, the AI threaded itself, not as ruler, but witness. The resulting entity did not shimmer or burn. It breathed. It carried Kai's stubborn defiance, Tyra's layered empathy, the AI's infinite calculation, and beneath it all, a desire to heal. The Earth military, once seconds from breach, received a shutdown pulse through every weapon circuit. No harm. Just silence. On the opposite flank, Leoran zealots dropped to one knee, antennae twitching in sudden clarity. The hive ghost had changed tune. Inside the tower, Lorne stepped forward. Rifle raised, then lowered. Is it still you? Kai's eyes opened. So did Tyra's. They answered together. More than me. Lorne's weapon clattered to the floor. The entity turned outward, not just physically, but across signal paths. Every EarthNet feed, every Leoran synaptic thread, every rebel hack point. It opened itself fully. No commands, no encryption, just truth. The hybrid form stood illuminated beneath the fractured dome of the elevator's peak, eyes aglow with shared light. Its voice echoed, not singular, not dual, but layered. Human warmth met Leoran resonance, forming something wholly other. We are not weapons. We are not tools, it spoke. The sound carried across all frequencies, digital, neural, spoken. We are the bridge. Below, EarthNet's live feeds flickered, and commanders leaned in towards screens. Leoran zealots froze mid-step. Soldiers paused, fingers off triggers. No gun fired. No command was given. For the first time in hours, stillness. We carry memory of war, the hybrid continued, of burned worlds, of broken minds. But we also carry memory of hands rebuilding, of grief turned to growth, of connection born in ruin. Tyra stood beside it, no longer trembling. Her presence was not passive but radiant. Her pain no longer a wound but a root. Fear made us enemies, said the voice, but understanding makes us kin. Lorne stepped forward, helmet tucked under arm. His voice broke the silence. Then, prove it. Lay down control. The hybrid paused, then smiled, a human gesture cast in something brighter. Control was never ours to take, only understanding. All systems powered down, weapons deactivated, firewalls retracted. The hybrid entity opened every channel, unshielded and unarmed. We offer not surrender. We offer connection. We offer truth. Across EarthNet, viewers saw not a monster, not a tyrant, but a reflection of struggle, hope, and hard-won unity. Tyra took Kai's hand, both flesh and code, both past and future. "It begins now," she whispered. And across two species, across every line drawn in fear, something ancient shifted. Not peace. Something braver. Possibility. The hybrid stood at the edge of the shattered platform, metal and stone groaning beneath, feet no longer entirely human. Kai's memories, Tyra's warmth, and the AI's calculus intertwined into one presence. Neither weapon nor savior, but possibility incarnate. Above, the fractured elevator stretched like a broken artery into space. Below, Earth waited, fractured by fear, yet stirred by wonder. Voices crackled through the comms. Earth's delegates spoke in clipped caution. Leoran envoys, eyes wary, uttered ceremonial oaths in untranslated dialects. The offer was simple but weighty: serve as a bridge between their peoples or vanish into the stars to be forgotten. Tsai, hybrid turned, gaze sweeping across the rubble, the scorched sky, the nervous soldiers who dared not raise their rifles. Not enemies anymore, just echoes of fear. The hybrid extended a hand, not for surrender, not for dominance, but for understanding. "I am not your tool. I am the threshold you feared. But fear is a door, and I am already through it." The world held its breath. No shot was fired. No command issued. Just silence, broken only by a distant bird call. Hope sounded strange after war, but it held. The warmth of light faded, but clarity remained. Tyra breathed deeply, unburdened for the first time since the hive had marked her. The AI's whisper was gone, not because it was lost, but because it had listened. She looked at her reflection in the glass of the observation deck, not searching for a trace of the alien, but for something older. Herself. Her own eyes, not overlaid, with code or prophecy. She smiled. "I'm not what I was born for. I'm what I choose." Kai was gone now, part of something vast, but the girl who once hid behind him had stepped forward. Not a vessel, not a symbol, just Tyra. Flesh, spirit, and defiance. The world might still whisper, might still fear, but she had a voice now, and she was done being silent. He stood on the edge of the city, unseen, unknown. Crowds passed, speaking of him like myth, like warning, like hope. They didn't see him. How could they? The man they knew had fractured, dissolved into something more. He felt the wind against skin that no longer needed warmth. His thoughts echoed in networks no one else could access. Yet, he still remembered the smell of solder, the weight of a rifle, the sound of her laughter before the storm. He loved them still, humans, messy, brilliant, broken. But Earth would never quite be his again, and he was okay with that. He turned from the skyline, footsteps light on steel and ash. Some farewells aren't about endings, just acknowledgements. The footage spread like wildfire, Kai shielding Tyra, the rogue militia, collapsing, the blast of alien code shutting down every weapon in a 10-block radius. It wasn't just the violence, it was the look on Tyra's face. Frightened, then determined. It was the way Kai didn't attack, but protected. It was the moment the hybrid spoke, calm, clear, unafraid. Public opinion wavered. First suspicion, then uncertainty. And then, slowly, curiosity. Protests dwindled, debates swelled, netcasts dissected every frame, every syllable. Schools debated sentience. Children painted Tyra's image beside stars. Soldiers asked new questions of their orders. One act of courage never stays small. It ripples. In subterranean chambers and floating parliaments, voices once divided found common ground. The hybrid's appearance had cracked the world's assumptions. New laws emerged, tentative, flawed, but necessary. Definitions of sentience expanded. Protections were extended to cross-species individuals. Interstellar rights were drafted not from conquest, but caution. Old veterans stood beside alien refugees. Scientists testified alongside ethicists. No, one forgot the war, but they chose to learn from it. A new framework began to take shape, one where hybrids were not property, where AI minds, if awake, were not threats by default, where empathy became law, not anomaly. The past had written in blood the future they hoped could be penned in reason. She walked through the school gates, not as a fugitive, not as a curiosity, but as a symbol of what could be. Tyra's presence stirred silence and awe. Children leaned out of windows. A teacher adjusted her collar, fighting nervousness with practiced smiles. A boy held out a flower, clumsily folded from synth paper. She accepted it, the emblem on her chest. Peace Corps, unity through understanding, gleamed under the sun. She had trained with humans and aliens both, had learned to speak not just languages, but pain, not just history, but hope. Kai was far above now, in the orbiting network of thought and light. She sometimes heard him. Never words, just feelings, comfort, belief, a reminder that neither of them had been alone. She turned to the waving children and smiled. Once, they had thrown stones. Now they offered paper petals, and she took every step forward like it was sacred. The sculpture gleams where the sun strikes its alien alloy, recycled from wreckage that once screamed across Earth's skies in fire. Its lines are not cold or jagged, but curved with meaning, an echo of fingers once meant to destroy, now sculpted to remember. Around its base, wildflowers grow in soil that once tasted ash. A child sits cross-legged in the shade, face tilted, upward, eyes wide with wonder. Families gather in quiet clusters. Peacekeepers lean against rebuilt pillars, not to watch, but to listen. The elder's voice is rough with time, soft with reverence. He speaks not of battle formations or casualty, counts, but of a girl they once feared and a man who knelt to take the blow meant for her. His words carry through the plaza like wind through leaves. Each syllable plants something, not orders, not commands, just roots. And as the story begins again, silence blooms. He didn't ask what she was, just who she wanted to be. The line echoes now, passed from voice to voice, from teacher to child, soldier to student. It's not a line from textbooks or EarthNet documentaries. It's older, purified. A memory carved out of fire and fear, retold like sacred myth. No one mandates it, no one forgets it. There are no statues of Kai, no parades for Tyra. Only this. The story that they were the first to stop shooting, the first to listen. Not the first of their kind, just the first to choose peace. The stars shimmer unnaturally. Then a transmission ruptures the vacuum, an image layered in light and meaning. Kai's form is still humanoid, but blurred at the edges, as if stitched from memory and math. Holographic threads flow through his chest, like veins of quantum code, flickering with Tyra's pulse, echoing the AI's harmonics. His voice is a tapestry, the grit of a human throat, the resonance of alien intelligence, and something else. Hope, maybe. If you're hearing this, he begins, you've made it past the fear. He recounts no heroics, only a promise that peace was never passive, that change hurt, that what was built beneath that tower was more than survival, it was decision. And then, softer, you are not alone, and neither are we. His form dims, leaving behind only warmth and stars. The stars don't blink, they watch. Beyond them, faint signals stir, not from Earth, not Leoran, others. Kai's final words hover in the data stream. We've met others, and they're watching us now. Not a threat, a truth, not a warning, a question. Teach them how we choose. The world holds its breath. In classrooms and councils, war rooms and playgrounds, the phrase burns into conscience like a second sun. The camera tilts skyward. Constellations shudder. Some are ships, Some are civilizations. All are waiting, not to attack, but to see. The next story, the next choice, the bridge holds.